Lovely. So I think we can begin. We already have about 65 people who are online, and I think more students will join us. Thank you so much, Sharmila, for agreeing to doing this session. I think, as we can see, I just started the webinar at 8 p.m. and we already had a lot of mentees joining us because they're so eager to know like what do recruiters think of and how can they build themselves for placements as well. Because all our students are from the age group of 17 to 25. So sitting for placements, interview process, everything is very important for them. So thank you for sharing your time and doing this webinar with us.
It's a pleasure connecting with you guys, and hi and wonderful evening to everyone out there joining this webinar today.
Lovely. A huge shout out to the QFIS team as well. They've got amazing mentors like Sharmila on board to do this session for us as well. Thank you. So Sharmila, we'll start off with a basic introduction. So for those of you all who don't know Sharmila, she's currently the Vice President of HR and Development at Evergence Telecom Systems. So we're very excited for you to share your journey into the HR field as well as understanding how recruitments take place. So if you could give us a brief background, tell us a little about yourself.
Definitely, this feels like going back to my interview days. So as you all know, it's Sharmila Kannan. I think around 17 years of work experience in field of transformation and development and HR. As you rightly mentioned, I'm currently working as the Vice President L&D and Talent Acquisition for Evolgence Telecom Systems. Over the span of last 17 years, I've worked with multiple organizations, large corporates, global MNCs, Indian startups, and it's been a diverse experience dealing with recruitments or talent retention with each of these. I'm basically from Mumbai, graduated from Mumbai University, and as I progressed in my career, I've sort of kept certifying myself with different things. I'm a certified life coach. Thankfully, use this quarantine period to upgrade myself to that stage now. So that's more or less about me.
That's lovely. So, as you mentioned, you previously worked at a lot of different organizations in the HR sector. So, can you tell us a little about the roles and responsibilities in these organizations?
Sure. So, with my career span, I have majorly worked in the field of talent transformation and development, which is popularly also known as learning and development. Worked with talent acquisition. I think most of our webinar today is going to be around that particular topic. I think one of the darker sides of the HR fraternity would be talent acquisition because I think that's one of the most feared professions. If you don't get through, HR is the one getting all the gullies at that point of time. I've also done a lot of organizational development and employee engagement in my sector. So overall, transition from an HR generalist profile to a learning and development profile, and then I've come back to talent acquisition. So completed the whole loop of HR responsibilities as such. Talking about talent acquisition, primarily it would be to attract the right kind of talent for the organization, ensuring that the talent that you have acquired remains with your organization. You know, you put in those efforts to retain those particular people or those resources in your organization. That's where your employee engagement and the organizational development part comes in. The transformation and development is throughout the employee life cycle along with the employee engagement role as such. Apart from that, you would have a generalist profile where you would be taking care of the day-to-day HR responsibilities, where you're looking at the labor and safety laws, ensuring that your human resources, your people are feeling safe, they're feeling wanted, they're remaining engaged with the organization. So overall, those would be the typical 4 or 5 core functions that we have.
Lovely. So, mentees, we're going to break it down. What do recruiters look for in students into three broad categories: resume, body language, as well as interview questions. Sharmila, we'll start off with the first major thing as resume. Can you tell us what is important to put in a resume and your take on this?
I think resume is the most crucial part, even before you get into that interview room, because your resume is the first mental imagery that the recruiter is going to have for you. Usually, what I recommend people to do is create one master resume. This master resume is basically a repository of everything that you've done. Okay, this is not necessarily what you're going to present in your campus recruitments or in your company interviews. This is the master deck which you're going to use as a reference for creating or tweaking your one-page resumes. I think those days of lengthy 4, 5, 6 page resumes are a history now. And honestly, recruiters don't have time to go through that many pages. They're going to get hundreds of resumes every day. And you definitely don't want them to miss out because you put the generic stuff in first, right? I think the first part that you put in your resume is, of course, your personal details. Put in your LinkedIn profile if you have any, if you have a GitHub profile, or any blog post or anything where you are doing work related to the position that you applied for, or that talks about your technical skills or you as a person overall. Mention those links, otherwise you can skip them out. The next thing would be your career objective or your personal summary, not more than 3 to 4 lines. This is something that should give the recruiter an overview of what you are as a person, because after that you're going to get into the detailing part. It's the first one page that recruiters usually scan through and then see if it's a profile match. Your educational details, if you are a fresher, this is your first job, like post your internship or without an internship, then I would recommend you to put your educational details in a reverse chronological order. And from there on, depending on the job role that you're applying for, your resume will start tweaking. That's where your master profile comes in place. So for instance, you're applying for a technical position. In that case, you would want to mention your projects that you have done. And again, I think because during your career span, people do a lot of major and minor projects, including all of them is going to clutter your resume again. So picking up those right sort of projects is essential at any given point of time. So for instance, if you're applying for a position of a developer or a coder, and Java is one of the core skills that the recruiter is looking for in the JD, then I think you should put in a project that you've done in Java. Rather than putting anything else that you have done out there, put in that particular project, because that's going to score you that brownie point. If you're looking for a consulting based role, then I think what really matters is your extracurricular activities, things that you've done beyond your academics, because that's going to talk about your personality as whole, and consulting roles require you to have a well-rounded personality. So talking about the different kind of clubs that you have probably been part of, whether it's been you have been a part of a youth club, you've been a part of a journalist club, or any internships that you have done, mention that. I think those are few things that you put in your resume. Your scholastic achievements is what you put in your resume. Keep it concise, bullet points, no lengthy histories there. I feel because once you put those bullet points, it's easy to read through, it's easy to digest for the recruiter. He's not going to spend a lot of time through it. So, as easy as it is, I would say put yourself in the recruiter's shoes. If you had something to look through at hundreds of different resumes, in those 3 minutes, what are you going to do? What are you going to look at? Do that and your resume is in place. I think that's overall what we look at. Try to ensure that it's grammatically correct, your spacings are correct, don't put too much of white space, don't put too many colors in your resume, because I've seen a lot of people using the artificial bots to create a resumes, and then you have those pinks and oranges and blues popping up in the resume. Absolute no. A decent blue is something that you would want, or a black and white resume is something that you would go for, unless you're going to start giving color printouts at every campus round that you're going to go for. That's, I think, what we specifically look into the resume. So your marks is one thing that talks about how well skilled you are, your projects that talk about what's your hands-on experience. If you've done internships, well and good. The recruiter is more than happy because you have experienced a part of corporate world somewhere. So you're ready, your onboarding is going to be easy. So that's basically what we look into a resume for.
Lovely. So mentees, if you have any questions related to resume, you can put it in the Q&A section. One of the very important questions a lot of people ask, as you had mentioned, is a one-page resume enough, or should you make it like a longer resume? Because a lot of people say, okay, you need to have one page, but sometimes it extends.
True. So I think it depends on the kind of experience you had. So somebody who has less than 5 years of experience, I think a one-page resume suffices. You don't have to put your entire job description out there in resume, because there are so many resumes that we see on day-to-day basis, and it's just a cut paste of what you have received probably in a JD previously. You don't want to do that. You want to use core things that you have done, top 5 skills that you have used at your workplace. Less than 5 years, one-page resume is something really good enough, is what I think. It's about keeping the content quality and not the quantity there. If you are beyond 5 years of experience, it's okay to have a two to 3 page resume, depending on how many organizations you've changed or what's the kind of experience that you have. But anything beyond 3 pages is going to be really, really lengthy. You don't want that. You want to cut short, because see, as you progress in your career, there are a lot of things that would be operational in nature that you don't want to put in for a more strategic role as such, right? And if you're a fresher, then you really don't want to put too many extracurricular activities, too many holistic, you have to pick and choose for the role. So basically, what we usually recommend students to do, or we recommend even our own people to do, is take from your master resume and keep tweaking, keep updating your resume based on the job that you're applying for. It's usually very boring to keep your resumes updated, I understand that, but keeping your resume in relevance to the job that you're going to apply for is going to get you that interview, and that's really important. So I think spend 60% of your time on tweaking your resume, keeping it up to date. That's important.
Okay, so a lot of times people also ask us, what should you not be putting on your resume? So can you tell us a couple of pointers, like mother, father's name, or a picture? Is that required? Can you tell us things that are not required on a resume?
Um, this would vary. I think each recruiter is going to have their own take on this. For me, if you're going to put in a picture, please put in a formal picture. Don't take your a crop out of your group photograph or your Facebook photograph out there. You don't want a too glamorous photograph. You want a completely professional photograph. Keep that. Keep a smiling, nice picture of yourself. If you don't want to put in your picture, it's okay, because a lot of organizations today going for a blind screening. They don't want to judge you on your appearance. They don't want to judge you on your first names, last names. Like for instance, in my organization, when we send across the CVs to the board, we take out the names and the genders of the people, because you don't want any kind of bias, even an unintentional bias coming in. Things that you should not put on your resume is, I think, things that are outdated, things that are probably no more relevant to the role that you're applying for. So if I am applying for a consulting role and I'm going to put too many projects that I have done, doesn't make sense. Or probably I'm putting too many marks or things that I've done in my school days, achievements of my school days, for 5 years, 6 years down the line of a job, not needed. Keep your achievements last 3 years, last 4 years at the max. I'm saying at the max, as recent as possible. That's what you need to keep in your resume. People don't need to know what you've done in your school, really. Like, recruiters are not looking for that at this point of time, at least.
Okay. So I see a lot of questions that mentees have asked, because a lot of them are, either school or college students, and they've not really done anything on their resumes. So they want to know whether when they're applying for an internship or a job, when they don't have anything, how do they build their resumes from there?
Sure. So if you have not done internship, I think things that you would typically add is your education. If you got your marks, your rank, grade, put it in a proper tabular format, ensure that your margins are correct. Add the extracurricular activities that you have done, again, specific to the role. So for instance, I'm again saying consulting and tech, because those are the two common categories that we look at. So if you are going to apply for a services based role, or a role that requires you to interact with a lot of people, then you would want to put in your extracurricular activities that you have done in terms of talking to people, in terms of probably debates that you have won, or any specific achievements in that space. If as a fresher, my page was just my CV was one page. It had my career basic summary as why I want to work with that specific organization. This would change from CV to CV. So if I am applying for a banking based organization, I would specifically mention that, seeking career which and whatever other skills that I think I have and are best suited for the job. That takes my first 2 to 3 pages. Then I would put in my core skills. Core skills here, because you're a fresher, would typically be your soft skills, or things like your integrity, things like ability to work with teams, ability to mix with people, uh, being a good team player. Some of the keywords that I could look at. Other things that we could probably look at is your educational qualifications, your extracurricular activities, or any achievements that you have done, any languages that you have. If you're bilinguistic, that's considered an advantage today. Even if you've done any volunteering roles, that's a good idea to put in your resume in case of a fresher. Volunteering roles specifically show a very different facet of your personality, so that sort of helps.
Okay, so I see one question related to templates as well. What is the best platform like to make your resume an app or MS Word? And should they be using a lot of templates which are online?
It's a good idea to use an online template, because that would give you a basic outline of how your resume should look like. Uh, MS Word is the most easiest thing to start off with your resume, to be really honest. Easy to edit, easy to use. There are a lot of free apps there, but then they would have some predefined templates. And as a fresher, it's very easy to get confused with the kind of templates that come in there. There are some of them very visually rich templates, which might not look nice when you take a printout in black and white. Then you have to ensure that you're taking a colored printout. Virtual CV is one of the websites that most of the freshers, or probably even experienced people, use for, that gives you a nice 1 page 2 page resume with proper spacing and everything else. Recommended, if you want to use an app, or if you want to use a site, Virtual CV is one of the sites that you could look at. Or if you are very good with your formatting skills, your basic word skills, then MS Word is extremely flexible and good to use.
So I see a lot of questions related to the 10th and 12th percentage as well. So everybody's asking that, when if I have a low percentage in 10th and 12th, and maybe a good percentage in the CGPA in college, does that affect a recruiter, and what is your mindset on that?
Okay, so your scores do play a role, but not that big of a role that it's going to be a make or break deal, right? So your scores don't necessarily reflect what you're going to be. There could be multiple reasons why, even probably a good student might have scored less in the 10th or 12th for numerous reasons. So your recruiters are not going to be biased about your marks. What they would usually look for is what are your current skills. Have, is it a declining trend? If we see a declining trend, then that could be a small bias that comes into the recruiter's mind, saying that, okay, probably the person is not able to keep it up. If it's 1 or 2 instances, I think it's good to go. You can't change your marks any which ways. That's history. So just put it up there, be honest, and be your best at the interview. Your marks might consider, like, we might probably look at 5% of it that's going to impact your overall profile. It's no more that age where you're purely based on your academics, people are judging you. I think people are looking for a more holistic personality. Individuals today, or millennials today, who are ready to go up there, ready to learn. If you're having that ability to learn, your marks are not going to be a concern. So don't be worried if you've got less marks. It's really not a deal breaker.
Definitely. I like how you mentioned also with our generation today, they don't specifically look at marks, but it adds a value, but you can still back it up with skills and what you're currently doing as well. That's lovely. Well said. So we'll move into the second segment of body language, personality, and appearance. Can you tell us a little about that, and what should students be on their like best foot forward?
Sure. So I think body language, yes, another crucial role after you've cleared the resume round, your resume's been shortlisted, and then comes that dreaded HR personal interview. personally, I know that for students, there is a lot of stress when they go through this entire campus recruitment. And trust me, recruiters are well aware of it. They're not any kind of monsters sitting there to judge you. They are equally on the pressured end because they have to pick up the best talent amongst so many people. In terms of body language, I think a pleasing personality, confident personality cuts the deal. Uh, you don't have to fake it to make it, just be your own self. Dressing up for the occasion is really, really important. So when you're appearing for the interview, my recommendation is always dress formally. I think that's like a rule written in stone. It's okay to be overdressed than being underdressed. If you want to suit up for your first interview, please feel free to. People know that you're seriously taking your job. Uh, Ensure few basic coordinations of colors, not too loud colors. Especially, I think soft pastel shades is something that is recommended when you're going for interviews. Keep it to whites, blues. Those are the colors that look pleasing to the eye, that also sort of reflects in your personality. I think when you're formally dressed, uh, you have a very different attitude compared to when you're dressed in casuals. Like, when you're dressed in your sneakers and your jeans, you're very, very different. When you're dressed formally, you're very different. Ensure that your shoes and your belt color matches. Very small thing, but recruiters do notice it. Trust me, that's the first thing that people, when you walk into the room, the first thing that people are going to look at is your shoes. Ensure that they're well polished. You don't have to wear those high branded shoes or things like that, but carry yourself neat, tidy, presentable, pleasing. That's what we look at. Carry yourself with a smile. We know you're nervous, but smile, that helps.
Yeah. So what about their personality and their body language? So when a lot of students reach out to us saying, "I'm very nervous before going in to meet a recruiter," although there are like 100 applicants that are also there. How do they deal with the kind of anxiety and like before entering the room, and what should make them calm before talking to a recruiter?
I think anxiety is something that's a part of human nature, and trust me, Nicole, even after 17 years of experience, I had my anxiety issues today. So it's something that's going to be with everyone. Don't be nervous. Don't compare yourself with other people who might have already got placement offers. I think that's a very common thing that we do. We take a lot of stress from what society is going to say, what my parents are going to think, what the recruiter is going to think. No, just focus on yourself. That's the first thing. I think the idea is to ensure that, okay, you might be nervous on inside. The anecdote that I would probably say, you need to be like a duck. If you see duck in water, it's swiftly paddling, it's continuously paddling, but on the surface it is calm. That's what you need to do. It's difficult. It takes practice, and usually a good idea to do this is do a mock practice interview with your seniors, with your peers, with your friends. That sort of helps you to revise your answers, at least keep that mental checklist of what you're going to say. And the human brain is very funny. When you've done the same thing twice, thrice, four times, you are confident. So, okay, ask me about yourself. So the first thing that the recruiter is going to say is, tell me about yourself. The moment you know, okay, one, two, three, four, these are the four things that I'm going to say. Okay, I am prepared. The moment your mind knows that, okay, I'm prepared with this, I'm prepared with this, I'm prepared with this, that mental checklist, as it is going to get ticked off, your nervousness is automatically coming down. Next thing is, don't be too stressed. If it's not this interview, probably next interview. No interview is going to define you. You know yourself for last 20, 21, 22, 23, 25 years. Okay. No recruiter in this world can decide what you are in those 15, 20 minutes of interactions with you. You are way above that. And every individual is way above that. Don't let the power go to anybody else. That's the first thing that I would say. Second thing is, when you dress up well, you feel confident. Revising your answers makes it easy. I think a couple of points that we look at is the way a person enters the room, the kind of handshake that you do, the way you sit. So my recommendation usually is, hold your shoulders high, walk straight, Do not drag your feet. Do not be in too much hurry. Also, you don't want to sound like you're scurrying into the interview room. Mid-paced, short length walk with probably straight shoulders. Smile as you walk in. Make that eye contact. I think very important. That eye contact and that smile is going to put the recruiter at ease. A nice firm handshake introducing yourself before you take your seat. You're done. First 3 minutes into the interview room is what people are going to judge you on. And the next 15 minutes, they're just trying to validate their decision, whether this, whatever decision I took about this candidate, is it right or not. So I think those first 3 minutes are extremely crucial. And in those first 3 minutes, your body language has to be extremely pleasing, extremely confident. Sit straight, especially, don't slump into your chair, or don't fidget with your phone, don't look at your watch. That's extremely disrespectful. I understand that, I usually recommend people to not even carry their cell phones into the interview room. Like wherever we are recruiting, it's strictly mentioned, please keep your cell phones away. If you really want to look at time, if you're nervous, put your watch the other way, ensure that the dial is here on your wrist, so that if you just keep your palms up front to you, it's the time. You don't have to, do this in front of the interviewer. Not happening. Definitely not happening. I think using those verbal nods is also very important to show that you're listening. That's very important, because when people are talking to you, they are usually in a panel of 2 or 3, and maintaining eye contact with all of them is a little bit difficult if you are going for your interview the first few times. Later you are, gradually you get used to it. The first rule of thumb, you walk in, you wish everybody, make eye contact with everybody. The next thing that you do is, when a person is asking you a question, make an eye contact with that particular person. When you're answering, vary your eye contact from one person to another. Use of hand gestures in moderation is recommended if you are good at it. Don't make your hands go all over the air. Not recommended. If you think you are a little nervous, you're getting fidgeted, the best way to do is keep your hands like this on your lap, and you are at ease. So you might be having those fluttering, skipping heartbeats while you're answering, but you still look calm outside, and that's what matters at the point of time.
Lovely. I love that you gave the explanation regarding a duckling, who's probably looking very calm on the surface and then flattering at the bottom. So just be confident and practice on your with your answers as well. Lovely. Thank you so much. We'll move on to the third segment, which is interview questions. So we'll run through a couple of frequently asked questions by recruiters, because we see a lot of mentees asking questions like, what do I answer for these questions? How do I stand out from somebody else? So starting off with a basic question, tell me about yourself. What should they be putting forward?
I think that's the holy grail of opening the conversation, if I say. So, talking about yourself, usually people know your name, but still introduce yourself with your name makes a good sense. And then talk about what you have done in recent past. So, probably if you are a final year student, say I'm final year student with so and so, these are the skills that I specifically have. These are some of the projects that I've done, and I'm specifically interested in working with your organization because XYZ. So the moment you now the power is in your hand, because you've said that opening line, you're slowly driving the conversation with the recruiter from yourself back to the organization. Now they're going to say, okay, these are your skills and you want to work with your organization. Why do you want to work with your organization? So I think these are small, little crucial things that you say. Don't get stuck if you don't know, you've abruptly ended something and you're just waiting for the person to ask the question. Don't kind of, turn yourself into a statue and say, yeah, that's about myself. I would like to know if there is anything more that you would like to know, I would be more than happy to answer. Just being confident. I think establishing that rapport with your recruiter really helps, because that shows that you're at ease with people. And that's one of the key skills in any role that you're going to work with. So if you want to treat a recruiter like that monster who's going to decide my fate, you're definitely not going to build that rapport with them. The best thing that you could do is give your name, give your current whatever you are studying. What are those 2-3 skills that you have? what are those one or two hobbies that you have that you think are relevant to this particular thing. Like, I remember at one particular campus, and this is very interesting because at one particular campus we were talking, and it's a panel of three. Usually I play the observer's role. Most of my team members are into that mode of grilling, drilling, and I usually am a passive observer. And this person came up, and in his hobbies, football was mentioned. And suddenly, I don't know what happened to the recruiter on my panel, and he was like, "Okay, so you follow football." And for a minute, I could see this candidate being stumped, and he's like, "Yes, I do." So he's like, "What was the last game that you played? Like, what was the last game that happened in last week?" And for me, the first reaction was I turn around and I'm like, why are you asking him that? That's not even relevant. But then the question was already asked. You are not going to put your team member down. And I was eagerly waiting to see if what is this guy going to respond to. And then he said, okay, I usually follow a team of XYZ, and this is the last game that they played. And then this colleague of mine goes saying that, oh yeah, what was the score? Like, why are you drilling him on a football game? You don't really want him to know about football. Like, that's not even relevant. So this person gave the answer, and then I hear this person say, "Oh, you know what? The opponent is my favorite team, but it's good to know that you're actually following your hobbies." So, if you mention reading, if you mention football, if you mention cricket, please remain updated on what's the latest thing that's happened, because you've seen people say that I love reading. Most common hobbies that you see across resumes would be reading, traveling, meeting people, and this I'm saying over the years I have seen, and I would say 80% of the people say I love to read. And my favorite question to them usually is, what was the last book that you read and what was it about? And some people can think on their feet and they can answer. Some people actually read it, but some people are completely clueless, and that can definitely sort of hamper it a bit, because recruiters would look at it like an integrity thing, that why did you even put it on your resume if you're not doing it? So be very careful what you do there, what you speak. So talk a little about your hobbies and say, that's about myself. Anything else that you would like to know about? We keep it at that, like 2 to 3 lines. We don't want to know your history.
Very nice, very interesting. So the next question I think that a lot of recruiters ask is, tell me about your strengths and weaknesses. A very tricky question, because sometimes it's like a bouncing ball. You don't know whether it's a strength or a weakness. So how do you think that mentees should come up with their strengths and weaknesses and answer it?
I think when the recruiters ask your strength and weakness, they don't really expect you to do a SWOT analysis. Like, they're not expecting that. They're just seeing how articulate you are, how well do you know yourself. Talk about your top 3 strengths. Now, your strengths could be anything, and I really mean anything. For somebody, being a perfectionist is a strength. For somebody, it could be a weakness. Because you are trying to be so perfect in doing something that you're not getting things done. Or for somebody, being a multitasker is a strength. But if you are going to apply for a job that requires 100% focus on one thing, and you're going to do a routine, mundane job throughout, you don't need to multitask. That could be your weakness there. So I think mention your top 3 strengths. Usually I have not seen people faltering when they talk about their strengths. Human beings usually can talk very well about themselves, is what I personally feel. So, people say that I'm a good team player. I interact well with people. I learn very quickly. I'm a quick learner. Honesty. I'm very honest. That's my strength. I think the real challenge comes in the question, what's your weakness? And I think this is a googly question for all the candidates that I have seen. Here, the recruiter is not expecting to know your real weakness. You don't want to tell him, I'm lazy, I can't get up in the morning. That might be your weakness. You don't want to say that. You don't want to say, I take up a lot of things, I can't do it. So students being students are extremely honest, is what I have noticed. That's one of the most honest communities I've come across in my entire life. And you get to hear answers that you don't want to hear at that point of time. So again, I'm sorry, I have too many anecdotes to share. So we were recruiting for a particular engineering firm, or engineering college, and an amazing profile, somebody who's been very well in co-colistics, somebody who's done extremely well in extracurricular activities, a very pleasing personality. till we asked this question about what's your strength and weaknesses. And the strengths were given out like ta 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 ta, and the strengths are there, and you're like, wow, that's really nice. And what's your weakness? This person says that, I hate doing the routine stuff and I hate traveling. I can't get up in the morning. This is my weakness. But I'm being honest. This is my weakness. Honesty is my strength, but I really can't travel. I can't do when mundane work is something that I really, really can't do. And I can't get up in the morning. I can't travel. And he said it so innocently, but unfortunately for us, that was a deal breaker because we were hiring for a position that required a lot of travel, a lot of mundane work. And I was like, if you hate traveling, buddy, you are not fit for this role, no matter how well your resume is. So usually, if you, what a recruiter wants to hear is a trait of your personality that can be harvested, that can be used as a strength. A very tricky one there. So some of the tips that I could say is probably, uh, I've heard people saying, I have challenged delegating work. I can't trust others to do work as good as I do. So I have a little bit of challenge, and that's why I end up doing too much of work. Like, I take up too much of things on my plateau. So I know that, okay, person is taking ownership there. A person has a little bit of trust issues, doesn't want to delegate. So the next question that I'm going to ask this person is, how are you going to overcome it? How are you going to overcome this particular weakness of yours? And the kind of response that I would prefer hearing is that, it's something that I want to practice. I would want to start delegating work, do a minor supervision, and then hand it over. So it's not actually my weakness as such. It's a small personality trait of mine, which actually a strength. I've tweaked it to make it a weakness. I think things like that, or things like I'm a perfectionist and I want things to be done in a certain way. So I might take a little more time doing a certain activity compared to others. But then I ensure that it's done best and it doesn't require any rework. I think that's my weakness. That's definitely not your weakness, buddy, but you've said it to the recruiter and the recruiter is happy listening to it. So the key point here is people don't want to know your weaknesses. They want to know a personality trait that can be harvested into a strength for you. There are multiple examples. You could probably use saying that, I think being too honest or being too upfront is one of the weaknesses that I have. And I'm not able to, if there is somebody who's going to ask me a candid opinion, I'm going to call a spade a spade. And I think I need to learn a little bit of diplomacy. That's what I'm planning to do. That's what you would answer, typically 2-3 lines.
Lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that. So somebody's also asking, being sensitive or emotional comes as a strength or weakness?
I think the way you present it really matters. So yes, emotional intelligence is something that people really look for in a candidate. Now, the candidate is, the recruiter is not going to ask you, if you're too sensitive, that can also be a major weakness, because then you might not be able to take feedback appropriately. You might overreact to a feedback. So I think it depends on the way you present it. I could say that if I want to say that being sensitive is my weakness, then I would want to play it as my strength. And I would say, yeah, I can be a little sensitive at times. I do miss my home, and at times when I see some small things at work, or probably if there's too much of pressure, I feel that need to go hug my mom or hug my brother or hug my dad. I'm a little sensitive that way. So you keep it at that. You don't want to say that I'm going to break down into tears if somebody's going to give me feedback.
So yeah, probably give something that you can come back right out of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So don't make it a barrier. I think human beings are unique. Each one of us is different. So being emotional is not bad, but you don't want to portray it as that you're going to be the next crybaby in the team. Like, no recruiter wants to hire you if you want to say that I can cry at drop of a hat. No, sorry, you're not on my team. Then that's how it
makes sense. So another question that recruiters ask is, where do you see yourself in 5 years or 1 year? So what should students, nobody knows where they're going to be in 5 years, but how should they approach this question?
I think this question is primarily asked with a reason that you want to see how clear a person is in in his vision, in his goals, right? So typically you would have a 1 year goal for yourself. You would have a 3 year, 5 year goal usually. Like if you're going to join an organization at an entry level, you will see yourself probably in next 5 years somewhere at a mid level in that organization. Nobody is saying that I'm going to be a CEO in next 5 years. I think that's unrealistic. That's absolutely unrealistic unless you are funding your own startup and starting something. You might be really talented and you might do that. Not judging anyone on that, but typically a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year goal is what you say. So if somebody's asking you a short-term goal, saying where do you see yourself in next 1 year, where do you see yourself in next 5 years? So I would probably respond saying that in next 5 years I see myself as a better developed professional uh, in this particular field. So if I'm applying for an HR position, I would have typically responded saying, in next 5 years, I see myself probably joining you for a campus recruitment. A little overconfident there, but still does the deal. Something that talks about your career progression is what a person is looking at this stage. He's seeing how clear you are on your goals. So they don't want to know something out of the world, but stay on track. Try to see that you talk about in next 5 years, probably, I want to be somewhere at a mid-level. I might have gained good skills to move up the ladder is something that you could speak about.
Okay, lovely. Another question I think that a lot of recruiters ask is, so once the resume has projects, competitions, and internships on it, the recruiters always ask, questions related to that.
Yes.
So, what would be your take, and how should mentees answer those questions related to projects, competitions, and internships?
I think one of the common pet peeve of the recruiter is to check whatever you mentioned on your resume, is that correct or not, right? So if you mentioned a project that you have worked on, they're definitely going to ask you. If it's a technical round, they're going to ask you the technical details of the project. If you worked on it, get into the technical details, explain it as concisely, as precisely as possible. If it's a team project, please don't say it was an individual project and try to take the credit for it, because I think we need to give some credit to the recruiter. He's seen enough to know what could be what. Uh, be honest in your responses. I would definitely say that if you don't know something, be upfront and say, I don't know, I'm sorry, I don't remember this. That's something that a recruiter would appreciate instead of you faffing around that topic. So I think that's really, really important. If you're talking about a competition, I think what people would usually ask you is, why did you enter this competition? What was your biggest challenge? How did you overcome it? So you would want to talk about the kind of preparation that you did. It could be something like, I have been a very introvert person in the early stages of my life, and debate was something where I would be the last person to open my mouth for anything. Yes, I have changed over a period of time, but when I was asked about one of the debate competitions that I entered, and they were like, okay, tell me about this competition. You mentioned that you got a participation or a consolation prize in this, and why did you not win it? And I was like, oh God, I am so dead, because is this going to be the deal breaker? The interview went so well, and then I just said that, I'm somebody who's slightly introvert, and I entered this debate competition to fight that fear of speaking amongst people. And I think that experience has slightly helped me to talk in groups, and it's more for a learning experience rather than winning it. I might enter into a few more competitions over a period of time, and I'm sure someday I will win it. That was a positive trait that I showed. I showed that I was capable of accepting what I know is not working for me, and I know what steps I'm going to take to work for it. So talk about those things is what I feel. Talk about the kind of effort that you have done. Talk about the kind of effort that your team has put in. Give that credit. People will love you for that.
Lovely. So being honest in an interview. Thank you for sharing that. So another one of the questions, when you come to the end of the interview, recruiters always ask, okay, do you have any questions for me? So sometimes students say, no, I don't have, or sometimes they ask relevant questions. What is your take on, asking a question? What would be like the right questions to be asking a recruiter?
I think asking a question is very, very important, at least from my perspective. I think that shows that you have put in that time and effort to know about the organization, to know about the job. Common questions that you could ask in any interview towards the end of the interview is, what would be your typical day in this particular role be like? That shows that you're interested in knowing that in case you're onboarded, how is it going to be like for me? Or you could say, what do you think is an ideal candidate for this role? What are the kind of qualities that you're looking for a person in this role? Any feedback that you would have for me? Uh, there might be some recruiters who are candid enough to give you an open feedback then and there. Ask about the organization. That shows you're interested. I feel that it's very important that you research about the organization, you research about the role, do a little bit research about the competitors also, because that could be a part of a question in one of the interviews where people say, okay, you are from this, we are in this industry, what do you know about us, what do you know about this job role? And if you don't have a response, it becomes a little bit of challenge. One common question, as I said, irrespective of what role you're applying for, is what kind of day do you see, what kind of challenges that you see in this particular role, what are those skills that you think a candidate should have to get through to this role easily. Top 2-3 questions. You don't want to grill the recruiter too much, there is a limited time, so keep to these 2-3 questions and you're good to go.
Okay. So somebody is also asking, what is an appropriate answer to why we shouldn't hire you?
Why we shouldn't hire you?
Yes.
Wow, that's a very interesting one. I don't want to sound, I don't want to recruit, I don't want a candidate to sound very cocky on this one, saying that, if you don't hire me, you're going to lose out on one of the best assets. That's not an answer that I'm looking for. But probably I would, again, this is more similar to your strengths and weaknesses well question, where I would say that you shouldn't hire me because probably I am too detail oriented, and I might take a little bit more time to submit this thing for you. Or you should not hire me because I'm an extremely good team player, and very soon I'm going to be probably one of the pet of those teams. You shouldn't hire me because I'm extremely quick learner, and you're good soon going to find a replacement because I will move to the next level very soon. Uh, Provided you sound confident and not cocky when you are giving these responses. The trick is in your tone, the trick is in your facial expressions. You don't want to sound arrogant, you don't want to piss off somebody on the wrong note. So that's what it would be. So talk about your weakness harvested as strength again there in that particular question, and you should be good there.
Okay, so I think a lot of the interviews now have moved virtually online. So is it the same for you all as well? Have you moved all your interviews online?
We have been into the virtual interviews for quite some time now. So somewhere at the start of the webinar, I mentioned about the blind screening. So that's our first screening that we do. Even the recruiter, when we see the CVs, the talent acquisition team, they make sure that they remove the name, they remove the gender, they remove the state, and then you get to see the CV. Those CVs are then passed from the ATS to the actual recruiter. We usually always do a Skype or a telephonic round depending on the candidate's convenience first. Then we move them into a technical round or into a consulting case study or a GD based round. So for us, it's always been 80% virtual, 20% physical for roles which were based in Hyderabad. But virtual has been something that's been our way of working for quite some time now.
Okay, so is it different for virtual and on ground? Because I think now the students from having on ground interviews, it's moved all virtually. So they want to know how to make an impression in the first 3 minutes virtually, or is it the same?
No, I think virtual is slightly more difficult because they're not going to see you walking in. You're not actually going to have that handshake. Plus, the kind of internet connectivity issues that are there, you are more worried about what if he's not able to hear me? What if my image is not coming? So, usually, what I recommend people to do is dress up just like the way you would dress up for a formal interview. Be in a noise free space. Open your webcam, see how you look, see what's your background like, adjust it. Ensure that the person is able to hear your voice. Stay connected with a Bluetooth speaker or a earpod or a headphone if needed. That shows that you're prepared for any emergency. If it's your first virtual interview, keep your notepad and paper handy. You might want to write down something that the person is asking, and you might immediately not be able to register it because you're more focused on how you're looking right now. because that camera is right in front of you, and that can be pretty distracting. Don't be very fidgety in your virtual interview, because the person is not in front of you. So it's very easy to get distracted by your phone. It's very easy to get distracted by that strand of hair that's coming in, or things like that. So I think noise free environment, dress up to the occasion, ensure that you're loud and clear. Check at the start of the interview if the person is able to hear you clearly. Would they need you to speak louder? And also give that disclaimer that, in case you're not able to hear me, or in case you feel that my voice is jarring, please tell me, so that I could repeat myself. That shows that you are prepared. And of course, people are only going to see the first half of your body. So ensure that you're sitting straight, you're not slumped, you're not falling here and there. Basic things. I think interview basics are your body language. Keep straight, keep smiling. Use your hand gestures, because that's what people are going to see when you're virtually, because that's the only part that they're seeing. So you might be trembling down in your knees, but you are using that stifle, you are using the right hand gesture, open palms. Please don't point your fingers not down. So keep your palms open. That shows you're very confident. I think that would be my tip for people usually.
Lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that. Some of the students are asking related to group discussion. So can you give us some tips on group discussion, and what does a recruiter expect from a candidate?
So I think in a group discussion, I'm definitely going to see who's opening the call first. Very important to get onto that first of three people who sort of open the conversation. Sometimes it could be quite tricky, because I remember one of the group discussions that we had at one of the colleges, and it was arranged marriage versus live-in. What is your take on it? And there is no right or wrong for this group discussion. Most of the group discussions are for your standpoint, or what's your way of thinking. There is no right way, or there is no wrong way. Each recruiter is going to have a different response to this. So I think ensuring that you respect your participants is very important in a group discussion. Don't, when somebody's talking, don't interrupt them, don't cut them short just because you know that the time is running out and you want to say something. Just raise your hand and probably say that, I would have a different take on this. Could I say it? Please allow people to finish, but ensure that the group knows that you're ready to put your point across. So if you want to sit there calm saying, okay, I'm going to wait for everybody to finish and then I'm going to say it, you might not get a chance. Again, the recruiters are looking at your body language. They are looking at how you're treating your colleagues, how you're treating your peers in that group. You don't want to be too aggressive. You don't want to be too passive. That fine balance needs to be there. Always think before you want to speak in the group discussion. Put those top 2-3 points that you want to speak. You don't want to raise your hand and then blabber out, because you wanted the recruiter to hear you, so you just raise your hand and then you're going on thinking and speaking. That's going to give you a very shoddy image. That's going to cut down your points. So if you have not been able to start the conversation, first 2-3 people you are not in that group, don't worry. Think, okay, listen to where the conversation is going, put your points in your mind, be very quick and just raise your hand and say, I have a different viewpoint, can I say? Or I support this viewpoint and I support this viewpoint because of XYZ reasons. Or I reject this viewpoint because of XYZ reasons. Clear, concise, short, confident. That's all.
Okay, so somebody is also asking, is there any activity you should be doing before going in for an interview, like just to, prepare yourself for an interview?
I think different people would have different things. For me, what works is I rehearse. So as I mentioned, rehearsing with a peer, rehearsing with a senior sort of really helps. So for me, during my growing up years, it was my sister who would be my hardest critic. And before any interview, I would just go on and say, "Yaar, batao." Just ask me some questions, and it could be just random, and she's just throwing questions at you, and you're rehearsing. See, today internet is full of information out there. Take those top commonly 2-3 questions that are asked, like things like, tell me something about yourself, your strengths and weaknesses, why we should hire you, who's your role model, and why is this person your role model? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? These are some of the very common questions. These are common across any kind of genre of work that you're going to work, right? So prepare yourself for these questions, rehearse yourself, and that should help. For some people, making a cheat sheet of responses helps, right? So you just put pointers out there. So talking about yourself, okay, education, hobbies, extracurricular activities, projects, 1 2 3 4, this is what I'm going to speak about. So writing it down can help. You can't write down all your responses. Those basic pointers, those basic bullet points can help, is what I feel. Other thing is probably going through the internet, seeing that if it's for that particular position, what are the kind of questions that are being asked usually, and there are a lot of forums out there that would give you a lot of information. My only suggestion is learn, absorb, but keep your unique identity, your unique trait. You don't want to copy paste somebody else's answer in your interview. You never know what that answer is, right?
Sorry, I was muted. I do have one more question. So, how important is it to read about the company before going for the interview? And can you tell us any platforms that students can probably look at for previous questions, or that different organizations ask questions in different ways? So, is there any specific platform, and how important is to read about the company?
I think reading about the company is as important as knowing your JD. It is the cardinal rule number one. Know about the company that you're going to apply for. Don't just read about what the company has done, or what field or what industry they are in. Try to read about their culture. Try to read about their CSR activities, if they have a CSR on board. Try to read about those activities as well. See what has been their top 2 top 3 products, top 2 top 3 services, top 2 top 3 clients. Who are their competitors? So probably if I was reading about an organization, I would see where are they based, what industry do they operate in, what is the primary role or primary premise of this organization. Is it a consulting organization? Is it a product development organization? Is it an industry based organization, a banking based organization? Who are the founding members? What is the history of this organization? What are the different kind of branches? Then a lot of people mention about their culture of the organization, like our team or people we work with, or work with XYZ organization. When you click on that page, you will see the different kind of activities that they've done. When you go through all this, it's sort of there's a mental checklist in your mind which says that, okay, this is the kind of organization that I want to work with, because each one of us, I think, have that ideal organization where we know that, okay, हाँ यार यहाँ पे काम करना है. So it's more of that sort.
Okay, so I can see a couple of other questions related to internships. So, do you know any platforms that students can apply for internships, or where can students even look for jobs apart from campus placement?
So apart from campus placements, I think there are quite a few places. LinkedIn, I think, has become the new place for recruiters. Like we don't look at job boards anymore. No more Monster of Naukri or anything for us. It's LinkedIn that we are looking at, and specifically, a lot of organizations have started investing on LinkedIn Recruiter as such, because that gives you an overall view. When you're looking at a person's profile on LinkedIn, you see what he's commented, where he's commented, what are his views, what is his overall profile. That is not possible with a job board as such. If you are somebody who's already graduated out, you're doing your masters, then yes, job boards could be a good option apart from campus placements, or final year students do put up your resumes out there. There are a couple of sites that would hire freshers also. Basically, a lot of companies today use a ATS system or a bot to source all the resumes that are there. So the more visibility for your resume, higher chances that you are somewhere in the file of the recruiter, because most of the time the screening is done by the bot based on the keywords, and then it comes into your ATS or your applicant tracking system, and from there on you look at things. So put on your CVs on those job boards. Please create a LinkedIn profile if you have not created it so far. Ensure that it's up to date. Ensure that you're following the right kind of pages, commenting on right kind of things. if you are somebody who's gifted with the art of writing, please do write one or two things that sort of establishes your credibility more. So do that. That helps.
Lovely. I think we'll just look at one last question. I think it's been very informative because it's important to build in your LinkedIn profile. We've covered body languages, we've covered resumes as well as interview questions. So coming to the last one, a lot of our students when they're sitting for placements, they want to look at a couple of apps, websites, or any platforms that could help them before the interview. So do you know of any such platform that you could recommend for just gaining skills before preparing for an interview?
So I wouldn't be able to name anything as such. I don't want to endorse anything at this moment because I don't want my company's PR and the corporate ethics thing to be running behind me. But I think if you just do a basic Google search of common interview questions or tough interview questions or tricky interview questions asked in campus placements, there are thousands of those reliable sources. Please try to go to the page 2, page 3 parts also, because a lot of time page 1 is sponsored and most of people are going to look at that, and you might miss out on some nuggets of wisdom which are there on page 2, page 3, because human tendency, 1, 2, 3, first 4 things we've seen it, we think we know it all, and it's going to be common across everybody. So look at page 2, page 3, try hunting, look at discussion boards or forum boards. I think there a lot of the student community is pretty active on discussion boards, forum boards, uh, different places for students out there where people talk about their own campus recruitment experiences. And I think there is a lot that you can learn from it. Like you can learn from other people's mistakes, you can learn from what uh, worked for them, and that could work for you as well. So I think research, add your own identity to the entire question. See if it was me who was answering this question, how would I answer it based on these top 3 4 points which this candidate answered it with. So no copy paste, inspire, put it in your own words, and you're good to go.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Sharmila, for taking time out. I think this is a very absolutely an informative session, and a lot of questions also got answered in this process. And I can only see that mentees have been putting it an informative session. So, mentees, we have put in a feedback form as well. You can let us know how you like the session and what are the topics you'd also like us to cover. Sharmila, do you have a couple of last words for the mentees who are planning to sit for placements before we wrap up?
I think all that I would want to say is it's okay to be nervous. It's natural to be nervous. Don't compare yourself with anyone. You're unique. No recruiter is going to decide your fate. If it's not this placement, you will get through in another placement. Just be yourself. Keep smiling. That really helps you to crack through. Trust me, it's worked for me over the years when I've not known answers. I've been honest. So just be honest, just be yourself. People want to know you. Your resume is definitely an integral part of what you are. Don't worry about your marks, don't worry about where your friends have got placed. There is always something carved out for you out there. Just go ahead and kick it. Just do that.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you once again, Sharmila. A huge shout out to the QFIS team as well. It was a very informative session. Thank you so much. We definitely will be sharing the feedback with you. So mentees, please do fill in your feedback. I enjoyed this session and I learned a lot about, how presentation and what is important on a resume as well. So thank you once again.
It was a pleasure speaking with you, Nicole, and huge shout out to everybody out there, and especially the QFIS team for giving me this opportunity. I loved interacting with you guys. Yeah, so much. Thank you so much.
Lovely. You can look at the comments as well. A lot of mentees have loved the session as well.
Thank you. It's a joy. It's a joy, and it's a huge pleasure to hear all this. I'm happy to help in any ways. You guys could connect with me on LinkedIn. You guys could reach out with your queries to the team out there, and they would be able to connect with me. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Sharmila. Take care and
Thank
stay
you. Have a
safe.
wonderful evening. Bye bye.
Mentees, please do post in your feedback in the feedback form. We'd love to hear what you have to say, as well as what kind of other sessions you'd like.